Welcome to the Censinet Champion webinar series. I'm Ed Gaudette, the host and the CEO and founder of Censinet. And today I am joined by my good friend and customer, Brian Steerud. Brian, welcome.
Good to be here. Appreciate chatting with you for a little while.
Yeah, you bet. So maybe start off with telling listeners a little bit about your organization and your current role.
Yeah, so Faith Regional Health Services is located in Northeast Nebraska. Norfolk, Nebraska is where our hospital is, but we have quite a presence in the entire region. Cover quite a bit of territory to the west in particular, and serve a pretty wide geography. But we have a number of clinics in a multi-specialty practice. About 10 or so of those are outside city limits, scattered around Northeast Nebraska, and then we have our hospital here within the campus. Also we have a heart program, we have a cancer program, we have home health, and some of those sorts of things. So, do a few things that are maybe a little bit different for a organization our size, and proud of what we're able to do for the folks in Northeast Nebraska.
And just a little bit about your roles. You're the VP of IT, CISO, CIO. So you wear many hats as well.
Yeah. So organization our size. So I'm Chief Information Officer. I've been here for 12 years, so quite a
Hmm.
while.
Hmm.
And also hold the Chief Information Security Officer role. Organization our size is kind of challenging to have both of those separate and dedicated.
Hmm.
So we try to leverage some internal skill set within our team and try to leverage some external, strategically sourced consulting to help bolster and hold those responsibilities. So I really have responsibility for everything technology related, also like I said, cybersecurity related. Our biomedical relationship reports up through me as well. So just yeah, wear quite a few hats. It's kind of how it works in this type of organization. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thank you. And we met at Vive, I remember, and you shared some of your challenges with your overall cybersecurity and specifically your risk program. And describe what you were dealing with, some of the challenges you and your team were facing as it relates to risk management, specifically third-party risk.
Yeah, I mean, quite a few things. And over the years, we're proud of the way that we've developed and matured our security program, and had some block and tackling things that we were doing in the beginning, and thankfully have gotten through what I'll say is some standard security practices and have hardwired those, and we're able to move forward into some of the third-party risk management initiatives. So in the past, we had been using a questionnaire that we kind of through stealing our favorite things from others and that kind of thing, had developed a questionnaire that we had been using when onboarding new third parties. And it was fine. It was fine. It was good. But it definitely came with its challenges. So it was only as good as what we were able to do and network and glean from others. So that questionnaire would go out. We'd kind of go back and forth with vendors, and negotiate and determine how we're going to proceed, and if we'll do business, and if we will, are there any guardrails that are related to that questionnaire. But the questionnaire was only as good as what we were able to keep it up, and also ongoing reassessment. So I felt like we were pretty good at onboarding of new vendors.
Hmm.
We were certainly not great at once they were onboarded at recurring assessments and understanding where their current position was. And so I think probably three factors that led us to that next step was one was we had done some of the things that organizations need to be able to do from a security perspective, and it was time to focus more on third party risk. I think another one was the landscape is a lot different as far as third party risk is involved in the last couple of years. It's really increased at a pretty alarming rate. And then
Hmm.
thirdly, some regulations coming down the road as it relates to cybersecurity performance goals and how some of those things, the goals within that set that are, kind of the you can see the winds shifting in terms of what's going to be required and the types of things we're going to have to do. So it made a lot of sense for us to create a more efficient process and work with the Censinet product.
Yeah, and I imagine that effort to curate and then also to create some type of rating internally and then to develop corrective actions or remediations that must have been really challenging to do in a spreadsheet or another portal application.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely a challenge. And then I think it's at times some pushback in terms of um, because we kind of self-developed it, there was maybe at times some pushback on, was this one really that important? Are we really
mm,
asking the right things? Or so it became challenging.
yeah, or relevant, right? You may have found it difficult to send the right set of questions to the right type of tool. So people that were delivering an on-premise service weren't getting cloud questions and vice versa.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So then we met and we began a conversation to see how we could help you out. And lo and behold, we were able to do a number of things for you. So I'd love for you to share your experience with Sensinet, ultimately, why you decided to choose Sensinet and work with us. Obviously, the things within the tool, but also maybe some of the soft benefits as well that you've experienced through the relationship.
Yeah, so I think there's some things with the tool that make a lot of sense. It does a really great job at automating follow-ups, depending on how you stratify or categorize a vendor, which again were, to be honest, not happening before. The
Hmm.
only way we would have done that in the past would have had to have some sort of tracking sheet or something, and how often we're following up. I think the beauty of the Sensinet tool as well is that once a vendor's in that catalog and once they have answered the questions, then as a customer, I can request them to complete ours. And if it's already been done, they can just sort of release that. There's still an activity they have to perform to release it to me. But then it streamlines that process and can save them a lot of time. And then I think just depending on how those answers are given, it gives us the ability to understand the type of organization it is. So obviously, somebody who's housing a bunch of our data that happens to be patient data, there's some pretty clear cut, non-starters in terms of what they have to or not have to do. But for comparatively speaking, other types of services that we may engage with that don't host data, that maybe don't have access to our data, there's differences in how you can evaluate vendors, and that can all be documented within the system. Um, and I think the other thing that I didn't mention earlier either was that so our risk register overall was also a fairly manual process, and so we had again manual sort of checkpoints and hey, we accepted this risk last year. We need to revisit it annually and those sorts of things,
Hmm.
and that wasn't well executed either. So the product allows us to do that as well. So it's been a great process. It's certainly a very robust process, which I think can have. There's a couple different sides of that. We have been um, requiring and supportive of we're not going to move forward until we can get through the process within Sensinet. I think some organizations may struggle with that, so you have to have um, the ability to stick with that, because otherwise folks will try to circumvent that process or cut corners. And so we've been pretty diligent with it and have had good success. People understand. I think in today's world, when you can tell the story about what the risks might be associated with cutting those corners, I think you can influence your department heads and those that are coming to you asking for things. So, um, it's been a really great tool to get through those, and it does it takes a little bit of time. I right now we're kind of working through what is our long-term process look like internally, just due to the structure right now. I'm the main one involved with it, so
Hmm.
we're still working through some of the processes.
Yeah, and that's great. And it's a great shout out to the best practices that we've developed over time that really move the needle on effectiveness of the platform. Like you said, that policy adjustment where you're requiring it to move forward with a vendor, I think is really important. What were some of the benefits that you noticed immediately? Were you able to spend more time doing other things? Were you able to increase your overall volume of vendors and products that you assessed? Were you able to do both with the product?
I really enjoy the concept of being able to go in and having the times where a vendor's already in the catalog and that can be automatically sent out
Hmm.
is super important. We have had some instances where maybe it's a different leader in the vendor organization and they say,
Hmm.
well, this was completed by Joe, but I need to go back through it because I didn't, and review it again. There's been those kinds of things, but it's definitely allowed us to be able to track. It allows us to build accountability, I think, within the organization too. When you have an internal stakeholder come to you and say, "Well, we really have to get this done. It's super important. It's got to get done yesterday," and not to make it a punitive thing, but to be able to go to them and say, "This is great, but that vendor's 78% complete in filling it out." So when you can see the status report and where they are as far as completing it, then at least you can place that onus back on the vendor to say that if this is that important and you need to keep it moving, um, it'd be great to go talk to the person who doesn't have it completed yet instead of talking to me and asking me why it's holding it up. So it's also then allowed us to negotiate certain things. Again, if you can have the discipline to do it prior to contract signing, there's the ability to influence and have expectations for the partners you're going to work with based on how they answer the questions.
Yeah, I love that point. And in fact, we all talk about risk being a business decision, not an IT decision. A tool like this enables you to facilitate that discussion and conversation and collaboration at the business level now because you're bringing them into the process versus, having them at arm's length. So I love that point you just brought up. Let's look about, oh, sorry, I think I'm mouse challenged today. Here we go. We talked about a few of the benefits. I also know you've been leveraging the tool for enterprise risk and leveraging the benchmark studies. Maybe spend a little time talking about that, what it means to your organization, how you apply the data to help you with your overall program, and maybe to help you with investments.
Yeah, so I mean, anytime that I can attempt to get any benchmarking or attempt to get any sort of self-assessment. So you talk about a couple things on this slide. One of them is the metrics, the staffing, the budgets, that risk posture. Those are all really good to see and really good to benchmark yourself against what others might be doing. And then there's also just the strict hey, how do we stand as it relates to NIST CSF or to the cybersecurity performance goals and some of those things. So um, multiple facets there. We strive to be, where, it's, I always say I'm very biased, but those of us in the upper Midwest are very prideful people, and we want to know that we're doing the right things and that we're leading and that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So
Hmm.
the self-assessment as it relates against the CPGs and the NIST CSF is really great to say, how am I doing? Um, Benchmarking, I think, is a double-edged sword. On one hand, um, if we are below the median as it relates to staffing or budget, that's good information to have. It can be used to influence decisions. But when you put the hat on, put the other hat on as it just relates to self benchmarking yourself against the CSF and CPGs. Um, it doesn't matter what my peers are doing. I'm striving to be the best, and I'm striving to do the things that I need to be doing So you can use these tools in two different ways. One of them is that self-assessment and the desire to be doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. And then when you get down to the budget benchmarking and you're comparing yourself to others, um, one thing that I like to be able to do is say we maybe are doing more with less. If you look at the CPGs and the NIST CSF, we're scored, maybe in the leading part or the top tier. When you look at our staffing and our budget, we're not. Um, so that's great, and people like to hear that. But it also then can help you say, we're fully leveraging what we have available to us, and if we could increase that a little bit more, think about where we could be, and think about how much more we could do. And it's particularly difficult in a region like ours. So we're not a giant healthcare organization, number one, and we're in the rural environment. So it can be challenging to uh, recruit and staff the way that we want to, and fund it the way that we want to.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point. I've heard folks say, well, sometimes if the data is too good, it hurts us because it doesn't allow us to justify investments in areas that we think we need. But what you're saying is slightly different, which I love, which is you've got a way to prove efficiency of capital. And so while we're doing well in these certain areas, if we got a little more, we could actually be doing much better because of our efficiency with how much we're able to deploy and apply and look at the results for the little we spend. So I love that. And it really does give you a way to prioritize those things that could move the needle and maybe open up areas that you hadn't considered, like, for example, really looking at AI, investing in AI governance, and AI risk management.
Yeah, I agree. And just wanted to make one other point related to that. Um, it's very easy in security or risk in general for people to say, because nothing bad has happened, therefore we
Mm,
must be doing a great job. And that's not always true. Sometimes it's luck. Um,
hmm.
Sometimes it just doesn't always mean where we are. And so when you take some of these benchmarking tools and you can show, um, I've had people say, what amount of risk do we have? I said, well, depending, if you look at this benchmark, there could be some significant risk here. And the response was, well, we haven't really had any bad thing happen, and a lot of our assessments come back positive. So how would I ever know that? And so what I've tried to bring more to the forefront in conversations is, um, it's easy to have the opinion that we could spend as much money as we want. When does it end? That's the question I get a lot too. When does it end? You can
Yeah,
spend all your money and never be fully protected. And I don't disagree with that, but I will say that um, what I would like then to say is, if you don't spend this money, here's where our risk level is. And if you're okay with that, then let's move on. But we can't have the situation where somebody kind of has their head in the sand because nothing bad's happened and doesn't approve the funding, and therefore they're actually accepting a risk, they just don't know it. And so trying to do a
great.
better job of calculating and putting that in front of the folks that we need to influence.
That's a really great point, and I think oftentimes we miss the forest through the trees. We're so worried about the things that are outside of our control and the results we have to date that we miss the risk that you know if we do tweak it could reappear or be activated in some way that we hadn't considered. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think going back to the risk is a business decision, to your point, all right, well, maybe we can take some risks to prove out this. Maybe we spend less in this area here, but here are the risks. If we do spend less, are you willing to accept those risks? If you are, like you said, great, let's move that money somewhere else. Maybe we need more training of employees so we can put it there. So I think that's a really good way to think about, but you can't do it if you don't have the data. And this is a way for you to get your hands not only on the data, but also to understand where you are and then over time really trend the progress you're making as you comply and as you increase your overall coverage of these frameworks that are out there.
Yeah, yeah, I think I've done a poor job of explaining both sides of the coin in terms of I might say, well, we need to spend X amount of dollars, and then yeah, we can't do that right now. And what I'm probably not do haven't done as great a job as I should do is then this is the amount of risk that we're accepting, and then having a clear cut conversation where we say, okay, well, we're going to accept that risk then, or maybe it changes somebody's mind and you spend the money. But I think in the past, the comment had received was, well, I didn't even know we were accepting that risk. And to
Mm.
my point was, well, by not doing this, we were accepting it, but I didn't make it crystal clear the if then else part of it. And so that's something I'm working on. And this data helps me present that to folks.
Excellent, excellent. And you participated again this year. Thank you. We got results. We're working on results now, so those should be coming out in the next couple months. So, you know, I obviously want to thank you for your support and your time as a customer. I'd love you to are there other things you're getting from the relationship or you'd like to get from the relationship? Or that, for folks that only think of Censinet as providing a tool that you find useful and that you think others would find useful.
I guess there's another thing that I should mention is the onboarding process. So
Hmm.
um, and hopefully this is a net positive. But I will say, seeing the platform is like, oh, this is super easy, no problem. It's really intuitive, and it certainly is. But I will say that getting through the process and having your team that kind of meets with me periodically to work through use
Hmm.
cases and work through, hey, this is how we do this. This is the process for this type of when they respond this way. This is typically how we do it. Is tremendously useful. If I was sort of just entered a credit card number and got access to the platform, it's like I could use it and it would be, like I said, it's intuitive, but I don't think it would be at the same value that I'm getting having your team help me through them and understanding when you kind of have, especially when you kind of have a deluge in the beginning of these requests that do need to get done. It allows there to be some expedited responses initially. And then as I settle in and have settled in, it gets a little bit easier. So I would say that it's kind of the white glove of the onboarding process has been super beneficial.
Yeah, no, we really strive to put those concierge services in place early on because we felt like, if you can get up and running as quickly as possible, you're going to be able to realize value faster. And as we release new capabilities, you may be more open to looking at those, obviously, and adding those to your quiver of tools over time. So appreciate that, and I know the team will appreciate that shout out. Anything we could be doing better? I know I put this out there with the risk of you telling me something terrible, but we're pretty transparent organization. I think as you're starting to learn about, and we love the feedback. So is there anything we could be doing better?
Yeah, I appreciate your advocacy within the industry. I appreciate the things that you're involved in and helping to move cybersecurity forward. I think that's maybe one of the bigger things is that the more and more that vendors understand this is table stakes. If I cannot answer these questions and can't answer them in a in a acceptable time frame and an acceptable fashion, I'm not going to be able to generate business anymore. And so I think
Mm.
continuing to tell that story and how big a deal that third party risk is and why it's important for our vendor partners to most of them are doing the right things. It's just um, this is part of it, and this is part of the, in my opinion, I won't put words in your mouth, it's part of the sales process now. And if
Hmm.
certain things aren't met within a time frame or not met at all, we're not engaging. And so it's just important that all of our partners understand that.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Any last comments? Like I said, you've been a great customer partner. And have you been part of the customer advisory board yet? Did we have you at one of those meetings? I thought you might have joined one
I
of those,
think
or
it's just getting started. I think I have my first
yeah.
one upcoming.
Oh, good, good, excellent. Yeah. So lo love to have you back on, maybe on the podcast, and you could share, what you got out of that. I love those meetings. Those are my favorite meetings throughout the year because we bring, 15 to 20 customers on each call, and it's a 2 hour call. I facilitate the first hour, and really it's just about tell us about your organization and your top priorities and some of your challenges. And what I love is, the connecting of the community together. And you may have a problem, and then someone says, "Oh, we had that problem. Let me share what we did and how we did it." And I just find that that's really really useful. It's sort of that again, the concept of leveraging the community to to deal with the threats and the challenges around cybersecurity that, if we keep doing it alone, there's no way we're going to get ahead of it. It just doesn't work. And healthcare is so community oriented, and we share this very similar mission of patient safety, patient care, that it really works in ways that it doesn't work in other industries, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of my colleagues would tell me would agree that it's a team sport. We rely on each other. It doesn't make any sense for me to come up with some new novel concept if I can find somebody who solved that problem before and steal it and replicate it. That's what I should
Yeah.
be doing. And I think as a community, we do a good job of sharing those wins back and forth so that people don't have to create a wheel very often. And I also appreciate being solicited for just sort of feedback as it relates to a product and how the product can be better. Um, and I've already seen enhancements. Some of the AI stuff you guys are doing is already it's all happened since I've been a customer, so it's been pretty cool. So always appreciate for that iterative continuous improvement process and then the ability to provide feedback.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. And will I see it Vive this year, or you heading out there or not?
Well, I haven't missed I don't know if I've missed one. I typically do attend, but my schedule does not allow me to attend this year, so I will not be able to.
Oh, bummer. All right. Well, we will look forward to catching up at the upcoming CAB meeting. Again, thank you for your time on this webinar series.